Yeah, yeah. You'll
Um,
remember Arvind Pandit, he had nominated her.
okay, I think we're live, Jerry.
All right. Namaste, Sheila ma'am, and welcome to the Learning Experience conversation.
Namaste.
And as
Namaste.
you know, the format, it's a conversation that we have every Friday evening with educators and education reformers like you. And I'm looking forward to learning from all your insights. I remember we shared some of those insights almost a year ago when I was at your Bhopal campus, and
Yes,
you had just kind of joined and settling in at Bhopal, and I'm
that's
sure
right.
that you brought about a lot of changes because you have that reformer mindset and attitude, which is very important as an educator in our country. We've just launched a song called K Sera Sera
Yeah.
around a week ago on the 26th of November, which we celebrate as the Social Justice and Citizen Action Day. And I
Hmm.
was getting some flack from some dear friends. Why did you tamper with that song? Because it's such a beautiful song. I said, yeah, it's a beautiful song, and I love the song, but but so someone actually told me, he said, who gave you the right to tamper with that song? She wrote with a particular. I said, first of all, it's not a she who wrote it. But whatever he wrote, I'm challenging those thoughts, because why are you making it so frivolous about being
Hmm.
handsome and rich and pretty? What about being good citizens? What about being good human beings, which is somehow gone missing in our world, in our society? So I think those reforms are very important, and the song is of course on YouTube. We would love to have you watch it and give us your feedback.
I will.
And
I will.
and
Please
I
and
share.
certainly will.
and the whole idea is that we found the song very analogous to what's happening in the modern education system and homes, because parents are teachers at home, and unfortunately we are being trained to be this people who live with vanity, and our materialistic possessions define us without really understanding that that's not what defines you, right? So
Absolutely. I
that's
agree with you entirely.
yeah, and
I
that's
agree
the
with you
essence that
entirely.
we've changed, small tweaks that we've made in the song. And I
I
think
will certainly listen to it, Jerry, and I will come back to you
yeah,
with what I think
surely,
about it.
surely. And
Certainly.
it's so great. So over to Itu's your host and your I'm a co-founder and your host for the next few minutes, and I'll join you in later on to
All right.
provoke some insights. Yeah.
Sure.
So it's good cop first, and then the bad cop comes in.
The good
All right.
cop is the good cop is in a garb. So thanks, Jerry.
All right. See you. All the
Yeah,
best.
and to continue with what Jerry was saying, about K Sara Sara, any which ways we at Rex Karamveer, we as a movement, one of our slug line is right every wrong.
Hmm.
Together as one, we can right every wrong, and we stand here to bring in shifts and mindset changes as much as we can as a movement, and we'd like our community to grow more and more. So, namaste on that note once again, Sheila ji. Very honored and happy to see you here on our learning experience Fridays, the Fridays that we have slotted for our education leaders community, the community that we created in 2019 with the launch of our Rex Karamveer Education Change Champions Fellowship and Awards. So, welcome aboard.
Thank you very much for having me here. It is an honor to be working with you all in any which way that I can, honestly.
So the idea here, even at the Rex Karamveer Global Education Change Fellowship and Awards, is that to just unbox and maybe break the box that schools are not just grounds for book learning, but they're
Hmm.
grounds for life skill learning, and also teaching students, or also not teaching, I think, inculcating and imbuing in them the essence of empathy, a sense of giving, a sense of joy of giving. And what are the schools doing besides the classroom study, besides the curriculum,
Hmm.
to bring in a shift in the mindset of the students that, hey, we can create a better world. Hey, I can give a little something of what I have, and I
Right.
can make a difference to make the world a better place. So,
Right.
based on all of that, the schools that were doing some beautiful program like yours were part of the fellowship. And Manpreet was, I think she's your headmistress. She's the
Yes.
one who attended, and we had some wonderful exchange of ideas from these 70 schools from across the country. And that was our maiden award and fellowship for education change champions. But yes, we created some ripples, and we learned a lot of new and great learnings. So that was the whole idea.
Right.
Yeah. But without any further ado, I want to directly dive into having a wonderful, candid, cool, crucial conversation, as we call it here. And it's all about you as an education leader. And I'd like you to start and take me and the audience to your childhood. Take us through your memory lane. Take us through your school times and college times and growing up times, because I think, those times of growing up, school, college, especially schools, I would say, are very, very important, leave an indelible mark. So take us to that memory lane.
Okay. Um, Born in Chennai, taken to Delhi, then to Ludhiana, then to Faridabad and Kanpur. And before I knew it, in fifth standard, I was back in Chennai. However, I think what came with me, luckily, my father was able to put us, my brother and I, my older brother and I, through private education. And we were lucky to be in a convent all the while. And I say lucky because um, the sense of secularism that's set in there. I mean, I could be wearing my bindi, but I would be going to the chapel to pray. And we would always get blessed. We would have a special sermon just before our exams. That kind of, and I would be in the school choir because I have been singing since the age of 3. So, it didn't, and I would be singing that at home while I would have my Carnatic music teacher teaching me Carnatic music. I would also be, singing all these songs. And never ever, even in my home, Itu, the environment was such that my father always allowed us to follow our heart. He said, as long as you're responsible for what it is that you will do, and don't come back and say, oh, I wish you had told me differently. That strength that our father gave us, and my mother, who is an artist herself, for her to have been married at the age of 16 and then for her to go on and do her PhD in Hindi, as well as become, an artist of repute who taught ever since I think I was 4 years old, art at home. So the environment that I grew up in, along with the schools that I went to, really made me into who I am. I was not this talkative a girl, I must tell you that. Till I was in 10th standard, I was quite the wallpaper of the class, only spoke when I was spoken to. Never ever would I, step out of line. I was very much abide by the rules kind of person, which I still am. Because our father always told us that, it is not who you are, it is what you do that matters. And the empathy that he created in our hearts for people around us, was just amazing. It made us who my brother and I really are. I'll give you a very simple anecdote about what happened. I was, I think, in seventh standard, and this gentleman had come home from daddy's factory on a Sunday, set up the Navratri steps for us, and big mummy being the artist, we used to have the local television people come in to, video all that. So, and we used to do it very grandly because of who mummy was. And there was an interest between her and I to do this. And he set up everything, and then it was time for him to have lunch. So mummy had made a whole pressure cooker of rice, and I was tickled pink. Being at that age, you think, my God, somebody actually eats that much. And my dad didn't say anything; he just said, "Serve him." So I served him, and then he made this heap of rice on his plate, and then I put the sambar in, and then the pickle, and he ate. And then daddy said, clear his plate. And being at that age, when you're about 11, 12, you think, really? There is that sense of he is different and I'm privileged. And daddy didn't say anything to me at that time. He just let me pick up the plate, walk away with it. And after he had left, daddy just said to me, do you realize that had been the only meal he would have eaten today? That's all he said. And he just walked away from there. And I felt really, like, my God, I wish the ground had opened up and it had swallowed me, because I was so embarrassed by his having seen my thought processes. And he didn't put me in my place harshly, but that has kind of remained with me forever. The sense that you have to stop and think about the people around you rather than just who you are. Sense of privilege, I think, that I have had in life has just, been there, but I haven't said I am different because I have the privilege. I think I have looked at it as, growing up, looked at it as, the privilege gives me a chance to do something different. That is the way I have become the person that I am today.
Yeah, yeah. That's so beautifully put, and those are the learnings that make you who you become, and then you go on to make a difference in the society and in the work that you do, in whatever you become. And I think, unknowingly or knowingly, your father was also creating a leader in you, an empathy in you, an understanding in you, emotional consciousness in you. And that's so important, because as they say, it's not your what you speak and preach, but what you act as is what is taken by the children, at school, at home, wherever. And we at Rex also talk about a line that is a very important part of our actions, and every part of our thought process and ethos is not just talks, ideas for action. What are you doing? What are you going to do with the thoughts and the dreams and the ideas that you have to bring about change, shift in yourself first? Because I change to change India, and I change to change the world. That's another one of our lines. So that's so important, to be doing that. I'd like to ask you that, you have served all over. You went about a lot of places as a child, and that also brought about a lot of secularism, egalitarianism, um, inclusivity into your thought process, into your living. And how does that make you feel as a school leader? Because that's a pain point in this country, especially right now. And I'm privy to the fact that what is happening in Bhopal, because Bhopal is one city that we've stayed the longest, 5 years, as a Fauji family. And I have a lot of friends there, and I know what's happening in Bhopal right now as you and I speak. So what is your take on that, and how do you talk about that? How do you bring in the shift in your students? What is it? What's your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on that?
Let me just go back to the time that I worked in Malaysia, Itu, before
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
I talk about what happened here or what happens here. ELC, the school that I worked for, is a very small school. That one section of the school that I'm currently at is that whole school. If my high school is 710 students here, 721 was the size of my whole school there, from primary all the way to class 7, where they did their IGCSE exams. Now, that school was, it was different because we didn't advertise ourselves till about 5 years ago. No, I think that is wrong. Till about 11 years ago, we didn't even advertise. It was word of mouth that people came, and a lot of royalty was there in our school, the Brunei royalty, the Malaysian royalty. And however, if you were talking to the children, and we had 26 nationalities as well, if you were talking to children, it wouldn't, you wouldn't know that somebody's royalty unless you saw their bodyguards, rolling in the Rolls Royce to pick up the child. It just didn't matter, because my CEO, Mrs. Kalu, who was then the principal when I joined the school, was very, very clear that we are a secular school. She's Scottish, and she's married to Malaysian Malayali. And she's been doing this for, I think, from 1963. She's been in Asia, in education. And she started that school. It is now 30 years old. But her thought process was, it is not about what religion you follow. It is not about it boils down to, just like my father used to say, what are you? What are your thought processes in helping society, in being a part of society, rather than thinking about what you have, and like how Jerry was saying earlier about the materials that you have, and that is what makes you who you are. So having been, having soaked that in from Mrs. Kalu, and coming back here and, seeing the situation in India, in the way that politics takes over children's minds. And many of the people who speak don't speak in an educated way, though they might be educated, their thought processes are very narrow minded. So to be able to break that amongst the children, because the children that we have come from all different sectors of society here. I have children who are zamindars children, I have children who are CEOs children, children who are ministers children, people who are business people, people who are working, people who are professionals. So there is a whole gamut of students who come into this, and I have 230 staff,
Yeah.
so it is an interesting mindset that, you hear children talking about, I am a Hindu. Yes. So many people wanted to know what I was when I came in, and I said, I'm a human being.
Yeah.
How does it matter what my religion is? So people wanted to know if I was a Christian, if I was a Hindu. People found out that I was a Brahmin, and they were shocked because a South Indian Brahmin is not supposed to look like this. She you know so I think what matters is, anytime I come across children who say things that
Mm.
are politically said out there, I
Mm.
pull them aside, and I have a conversation with them. I take my time to have a conversation with them, because I think it is important to hear what they have to say, instead of just saying you shouldn't speak like that.
Yeah.
And even with our son growing up, it was always, he was allowed to say what he wanted to say.
Mm.
Then we would talk about it, rather than saying, I'm the adult, you're the child, you listen to me, because I'm the adult and I'm responsible for you. I think our responsibilities as educators are fundamentally to get the children to be able to critically analyze, think for themselves, and then formulate an idea. It could be wrong, it could be right, but at least you're giving them that chance to grow. If you
Mm.
are pouring everything into their minds and then sealing it because it is a mark that the child is supposed to get on a sheet of paper, then I don't think we're really being educationists. That's my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, we at Rex talk about the Holy Trinity, which is the parents, teachers, and the school. It is whatever learning has to go out to a child, it's in tandem with this Holy Trinity. It goes hand in hand. It's not that the school is the narrative, or the discourse in the school is something else, but when you go at home, the discourse is totally different. The child is left high and dry and confused. And then nothing goes out, and it's of no consequence. So it's so important to have those conversations. They may be tough, they may be difficult. The right narrative has to is very, very important to have, at least to tickle their minds and to make them shift, think that yes, that's another side of the coin, that's another
Mm.
perspective, that's another way, that's another way of thinking, and this could be another truth. So that's very, very important. um in continuation to that part only, and you're a history student as well, through and through. And um what is your take on the history being erased, the history being rewritten, you know the roads being renamed, the history being plundered, and what's your take on it, and how does it affect, even in the school books, there's a lot of tampering of history per se,
Well,
rather than any other subject.
I'm sorry, but oh, you've really opened the floodgates for me now.
Go on. I'm
Uh,
waiting to hear that.
you see, from the time that we were growing up, the history that we learned was what the British left behind for us to learn. You see,
True.
you see, and if they were, be it Kundra, be it Romila Thapar, be it any of those other,
Hmm.
uh,
Hmm.
again, the history that we read was that the Pakistanis were the bad people and we were the good people, and that Jinnah was the bad guy who created this. I mean, come on, seriously. See what happened in my learning, in my going to Stella Maris in Chennai, was that I had this phenomenal set of educators there. One who really comes to mind is Miss Shanti, who used to teach us the history of the USA. And the way she used to question our thinking, it really made me re-look at what had been, pushed into our brains as to that is what history is. And I must tell you, history for me was accidental. Like education, becoming an educator also for me was something that I did and then went to the corporate world and then came back into education. So that's a whole different story. So, but that particular teacher of ours, she really questioned, got us to think as to why it is. So right now, you can't politicize education. You are not allowed to do that. I mean, for me, I could just boil over and evaporate just talking about it at length, because for me, I think we're losing the essence of what India is. We are a secular republic. Let me just stress on the word secular there and republic there.
Yeah.
You know, it I mean, yes, I grew up in a Brahmin family, but nobody coming home was treated differently. And no, I went to everybody's places. I had a lot of friends. I still have friends from all different sections of society. And I didn't stop to think whether I was celebrating Eid or celebrating Christmas. My son didn't know that. Again, he at the age of 5, we were driving down in Kuala Lumpur, and the gentleman who was driving us said, "Do you know what that is?" And he was pointing to the National Mosque. And Pratik said, "Yes, I know. That is where the Christians go to pray." So there was, in the way we grew up, and in the way Pratik, our son, grew up, there was never a sense of you have this religion to follow. You have the sense of being a human being and being humane to follow, so to me, that I think is completely going sideways in the country right now, in my opinion. I think we should be looking at, what is 2 generations from now going to be like, not just what we're trying to achieve politically or trying to achieve in the space that we have through the politicians. I think one needs to really stop the children and tell them, think, because these are going to be the leaders and citizens of tomorrow. And half the children want to take the IAS exams and become IAS officers or IPS officers, because that is the mindset here in Bhopal.
Yeah.
For me, I think you need to stop and think, are you being a good human being? Are you being, empathetic to other people's causes? It is not about, I have, this power, and therefore I will do what I think is right for my people. I think it needs to be us, not my people. I don't understand that. It has taken me, to be honest, it has taken me some time to come back to India and appreciate where it is going, because it's one thing to read the papers and read the headlines from somewhere else, and look at it from a distance and say, oh, it's okay, it doesn't affect me. But in the midst of it right now and here in the last 1.5 years, there are times I don't even read the newspapers anymore, because I refuse to.
Yes, it's something that
I mean, it is not news anymore. It is not
it is.
South West as news.
It's melodramatic. Dramatic.
It is something else. It is the media has really taken it to a ridiculous level. And things that are of importance are not being spoken about. Things that make the next generation, the right generation, to come forward, step forward, and take India to its greatness is not being spoken about. So yeah, like I said, you've really let my floodgates open with that question, because as a historian, it bothers me a lot. I have so many discussions and arguments with my students when in class and outside, and they will say, Miss, can we talk about something? I'll say, yeah, let me just finish what I have to say about this, and then we will talk about, you want to talk about, whichever part of the world. And one of them started saying to me, Hitler was a nice guy, Miss, they just misunderstood him. Oh, we had furious discussion after that. So it is about getting the children to think. It is about asking them to question, like I was pushed to question in college. And children nowadays have access to so much media, but what is that media that they're looking at? What is it that is being stated to them as facts? What is it that people are thumping tables and being on dioceses and thumping and saying this is what we are and this is who we should be? I think we've gone a little lopsided, to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah, and as I was saying earlier, that teachers are not only teachers, they are awakeners and transformers. So that narrative and the right conversation need to be happening, where you can actually get up and say that this is wrong and this is not right, without anything else, without taking being a partisan, but yes, of course, saying that this is wrong. And that's so important. Uh, I'm wanting to ask you, that you've also done something called learning and transitional skills, and I think that's something that would help you to kind of use your skills, plus the environment you are in, and the school leader that you are, because there's a lot of transition happening in the way teaching is happening these days, plus what's happening around in the society. So what is your take on that?
You see, for anybody to listen to you, you have
Mm,
to, first of all, listen to them. I
true.
honestly believe that, right? So I can't, again, in my opinion,
Mm,
the school that I worked at, and I
mm,
can give you that experience because it is such a long stretch, 21 years in the same school, started as a teacher, finished as a principal. You know, it was a real democracy. Everybody was allowed to, state what they thought. We
mm,
started with 28 teachers when I joined them, and
mm,
we finished with 110 when I left that school. Everybody was allowed to speak their mind, was allowed to give their best ideas, was allowed to do that. So if you want to take a school to another level, if you want to take a community, be it the learning community, be it the teaching community, I think transition needs to happen, yes. But before transition, I think one needs to stop and think about where the people are coming from, understand them, know the audience that you want to talk to. So if I want to make a transition, make a change, I
mm,
first have to understand the mindset of the people, listen to what they have to say, pique their curiosity about what I want to say, and then say what it is in the
mm.
right way rather than being top down. I honestly believe that I work with people rather than people working for me.
That's
So that
great. Yeah.
matters a lot when you are, people are intelligent. I do not say that because I have had different experiences, I'm in any way better than you are. I think what matters is that you understand how you're going to use those experiences in the current situation, you know.
True.
So that is what I would do as a, as the school principal, to try to understand where people are coming from, to try to hear them out first, and then put forward my views and say, this is what I think, and, discuss about it. And then bring about the change that they think would be the right one for them, rather than just, bring about the change because I think I have to put my stamp as a school leader.
Yeah, yeah. But having said that, when the things are in the right executed or taken up in the right manner with the right heart, there's always a shift, and the teacher, as I said, can be a transformer and reformer as well, into changing the mindset shift, not only of the child, but through the child, of the parents, and then through the parents of the society, because it's possible and it's happened many, 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 many times. And I think that's what is keeping us afloat in these turbulent times, because there are these set of teachers, there are these set of schools which are doing some fantabulous work, which is helping to, let the movement going on and let the truth prevail, as they say. I'm going to go back into the fact that, you said you're an accidental teacher. So I'd like to ask you that, that's one of the questions I ask all my school leaders here in the conversation, that were you an
Okay.
accidental teacher, or was it your passion to pursue? You knew your calling when you were young. So tell us that
No.
story as well. Because
Okay,
you reminded me that I missed out asking you that question, because it's very interesting.
okay. So I was all set to be a doctor, Ritu.
Uh,
All set to be a doctor, and I used to
mhm.
write Dr. Sheela from ever since I can remember.
Okay.
No, and but honest, to be fair, I don't think I had the ability to be the doctor, to be a doctor. It was just a dream in my head. And that dream crashed when I did my ISC exams in 12th standard. And I've said this, told this story to my students many, many times. I just about managed to pass because I hadn't an understanding of what it took to do the ISC after coming out from a matriculation at 10th standard. I took much more than I could bite. And of course, I came up quite short. So because of that, my dream of being a doctor completely shattered. And the only degree that was left for me to try were literature and history. And I am not a fan of Shakespeare because I don't understand the language. I'm sorry for those people out there who are, who enjoy Shakespeare. I don't. I think the stories are great, but I don't get the language. I'm sorry. So history it
The
was.
archaic English.
Yeah, history
Got
it
it.
was. So and I went into college very angry at the whole world at that point in time,
Mm.
but managed to become a part of the National Cadet Corps because you had to be a state player to be on the sports, which I was not. You
Mm.
had to join the National Social Service, which was not for me at that point in time. And then there was the National Cadet Corps. So 6 months into it, my brother came down from the Indian Navy and he said, Sheila, let's go for a walk to the beach. And I had not been, I had not been crying. I had just internalized all the anger and resentment I had felt at the marks that had been displayed on my school, notice board for my cousins to see and report to my grandmother and tell the whole world that Sheila had done so poorly. So I think there was nobody empathizing with my situation at that time. So my brother sat me down and said, look, you are really wasting our dad's money. I think you should just go and, go to a finishing school and get married. You're 17 now, at 18, you get married. What's the big deal? That is when all of those tears, I think I created my own little pool on the beach that evening in Chennai, bawling my eyes out, telling him about how horrible I felt and how unfair the world was, and the whole thing. So he said to me, you're not, and I still remember the date. It was June 23rd, 1982, and he said to me, no, you're not a stupid person, and you don't have to prove anything to anybody but yourself.
Mm.
And that really got me. That really, really got me. And I went on to be the first mountaineer of my college. I went on to do a mountaineering expedition, and then when I had finished with all of that, my mom is a teacher, like I had said, she'd been teaching class. There was this opening for us in a school for an art teacher. And one of those teachers used to come to mommy and she said, why don't you come and teach art? And I,
Mm.
okay, I finished my master's just now. Let me just go and do something with my time and earn some pocket money. So
Mm.
and I was teaching standard 4, and I thought I was going to drive them mad or they were going to drive me mad.
Mm.
No understanding of what, and 40 children in a class.
Mm.
So I just hung in there. Luckily for them, I got married the next year, moved to Bangalore from Chennai, and then after I did my B.Ed there because that is what you had to do to get a job. So I did my B.Ed, was in a school. Um, and then I decided to have a child. And so I stopped working. I wanted to enjoy Pratik's childhood. And during that, I did my MBA in marketing management. Um, Having been in that school and having seen that corporal punishment is the way, I was not happy to do that at all. I have never, ever raised my hand on my child. I was not going to do that to other children. So I moved to the corporate world, went into marketing again. Um, realized that I was not somebody who was going to tell lies to people bringing in money for a home or, for teak trees when that land didn't exist. I was not going to lie to them and take money from them. And I got told off quite a bit by my marketing manager about how poorly I was doing in the number of people I was bringing in to convert from a suspect into, so that didn't work. And luckily for us, my husband, who's now a professor, then a lecturer, went for an interview with a colleague, got interviewed himself, and the next thing we knew, we were going to Malaysia for 2 years, and that turned into 23. When we went there, that was 97, and that year they had an economic slowdown. So I had to now fall back on my teaching degree. That's how I landed up in ELC, because I needed a job, not because I wanted to be a teacher. However, Itu, Mrs. Kalu is the most inspirational entrepreneur I have seen on this planet, and I've met a lot of people. Just sitting and talking to her for the 1.5 hour interview, no, she did all the talking, I did all the listening, and she had me converted. The first year, I think I made every mistake there is to make administratively. And she was, now, what have you done, Sheela? It was, she saw something in me, because the next year I had moved up the ranks, and before I knew it, I was the principal of the school. I owe it to her to have made me who I am, because I went in there with, open your textbook to page 37, let's read this. And the children thought I was from another planet or another galaxy, maybe, because that's not how they had been studying, you see. So I learned on the job as to what it is to be a real teacher, and now you couldn't get me to look at a textbook to teach. Couldn't do that. So it is I should say it became my calling. I didn't start with it being my calling, and I'm happy I'm not a doctor, because I enjoy what I do right now.
Yeah. So they say, that your purpose and calling you discover. Be open to discovering it, and you shall certainly discover. Just be open to discovering it. And we all have discovered our calling and purpose, all of those who have. It's a discovery to be made, and you have to fall, you have to go through the mill, the drill, and the grill to be able to find that, and fail and break down.
Absolutely.
To be able to
Absolutely.
break through. On that note, I'm wanting to ask you, failures, marks, race, expectation, pressure from parents, teachers, society, all of that. What's your take on that, and how does it boil down to the mental health issue, which is so large? What are your views on that?
Okay. I think given how I can talk from my own son's experience, given how academic he is, I am so thankful to the universe that we were not in India for him to grow up. I grew up with my cousins and my report cards being compared to at a wedding. That is how it was for us. And we're a large family. I have 64 first cousins. So you can imagine it was all about, and the Brahmin tag about being the intelligent people doesn't help at all. When you are an average student, and you pull out the stops towards the end because you realize what you enjoy, and then you grow with it. But I have never understood. I mean, I am still gobsmacked with children getting 100 in English. I'm still gobsmacked with looking at ISC papers and looking at the fill in the blanks for grammar that I had done way back in 1981. Nothing's changed. We talk about technology, we talk about this movement towards being a better world. But until and unless we change the way we examine children's intelligence, not their rote learning, I think every child is intelligent, and I believe that every child has the right to be who or he or she can be. But unfortunately, I do understand why there is this number race. Given the number of jobs that we have, it's like a bottleneck, isn't it? The number of jobs we have every year is a bottleneck. The number of students getting churned out of schools and colleges are the rest of the bottle.
Hmm.
You get to get up to and get out and out there and be who you are, unless you have something to show, and that is only that mark sheet. At the same time, I do not believe, I mean, if I were to be graded by the mark sheet I had in the 12th, I should have been been doing nothing with my life that was of consequence. But somebody saw, like Mrs. Kalu saw in me the potential to be what I am. My brother saw in me the potential to be who I can be. Every child is intelligent. It is just that the intelligence is different. It is very different from the rote learning that is expected of them. And therefore, the children are sucked into a world of tuitions and more tuitions and hours of grilling and drilling to become that machine that just picks up the pen and writes without thinking and completes and gets that 9900%. And there is, I'm sorry, but there is, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with children having fantastic rote memory, but in this day and age, Google is there, you know there is so much information on your palm. You don't need to look at a textbook. It's all sitting there. There is so much that's been written and that you can read about. Why would you want to have it up there where you could use that, the cells of the brain, I believe we use not even 1% in our whole lifetime, and the cells die with us. Um, if you could use that intelligence to make the world a better place, and I mean it from my heart, to make it a place where you are bringing about change for the better. There are children nowadays. There is a child who has just been put on the child of the year, kid of the year. She's on Time magazine,
Yeah.
Mr. Rao. So it, do that. And I don't think one needs to have the education, but it has to do with parents' mindsets as well. It is about educating the parents and educating system to say that this is not how it needs to be done. And I don't say this because I have worked in an environment where Cambridge was the way forward. I am saying that you the way children think, how do I think that children are different between the schools that I have taught at in Malaysia and the schools that I am,
Hmm.
children that I have seen in the schools? The
Yeah.
confidence that children have to speak about something,
Hmm.
the confidence, that is the only thing that I feel is missing. We appreciate and applaud all the people who've gone abroad and been part of Google, been part of Facebook, been part of what I'm talking about. We say, oh, they are Indian, but you see, they went there and studied there, and then through that American process of learning, they have gone on to do great things. you know we have such great potential amongst the students within India to do just phenomenal things if we give them a chance to step outside of that textbook and talk about it,
Yeah.
think outside the box, have critical thinking skills, because I don't think anybody is going to have the kind of jobs that you and I have in 2 generations from now.
True.
So it's all going to change. So when that is happening, I don't see the need to do the rote learning. But you see, it is going to take the education of parents, batch after batch after batch, to get them to think like that, because they don't know any better. They think if my child does the JEE entrance and does the learning for it from 8th standard all the way to the 12th standard, then my child is set for life. But it is not every child who can go on to crack those papers with all that mechanical learning that they have to do of stuff in order to get there. Some don't have the ability to do that, and yes, they should go ahead and get those ranks. My sister-in-law, in fact, topped the JEE list in her year. So
Hmm.
it's not that I am not surrounded by people who have done this and made great lives for themselves, but again, it is about what are we doing for our society. What is it that we're taking away from here? I'm very proud of the grades that my children receive here. Please don't get me wrong. I mean, this year my 10th standard highest scorer was 99, 99. She earned 99 and 100 in 3 subjects. I'm very proud of her. But I'm saying, and then what? And
So
then
Shalaji, you talk our language, and you speak what we espouse and what we talk of, what we're trying to create noise about, and that is why the Education Change Champion Fellowship and Awards was initiated. That are these schools teaching children life skills? You said, then what? You're going to go out of the school and nobody is going to ask you how many marks did you get in your 10th or 12th. What you made out of that is what matters. The person who's got 50 or 60, if he is a better human being doing a better job or doing things to make a change in the world, I think that student um, is worthy of all the applause and celebration.
absolutely.
Because the person who's got 99 don't know what he's going to do. If he's got the life skills, he's going to make the world a better place. That's one thing. And the second thing is, in April when we launched the school awards, we also launched our school program that has been researched for over 2 decades. Took 5 years for us to kind of compile and put it together. It's called International Volunteering Life Skills Scholars Fellowship and Awards, which is for students, and the stakeholders are not just students but teachers and parents, that every child has the potential, heroic potential, and it can be unleashed with the right approach to the mindset, and then it triggers change in their powers and values and shift in around them and in them. And that's why at Rex Karam we celebrate people like Dashrath Manji, who
Mm,
had who had character. So we
yeah,
celebrate, and in the school program we are talking about character, that it's your character that takes you forward, it's not your competence. Because competence or ability to learn something, talent can be taken forward, you can learn it, it's a learnable skill.
it
But
is.
character is so deep rooted, it's the roots that takes you forward and helps you become who you become. And along with that, now while sitting in COVID times, we are also launching a program called Mills. And Jerry will talk more about that, which is again for 11th and 12th class. And I think you would have got the mail from us as well. We've extended it to 11th and 12th class, that, when we are sitting in these times, COVID times, absolutely VUCA times, as they say, volatile, unpredictable, complex, and ambiguous, that ambiguity, what to do, no jobs. So when winds of change blow, some hide behind walls, but some get on and make windmills, like our, we're talking about our hero here is William Kwambwamba from Malawi, who created windmills from scrap. He was thrown out of the school at 14. So that's the kind of character, or that's the kind of innate potential everyone has to give back to the universe and also create some path and purpose for themselves. So I'm really, really happy that our thoughts resonate, and that's why you are part of our movement, and your school is part of the movement. So thank you so much for all those thoughts and ideas. And uh, my last brief question to you is, what's happening in COVID times? Because there's a lot of mental health issues, whole lot of normal has changed into a new normal. Things are, as you were saying earlier, you've got your founders tomorrow, and it's going to be an online founders. So a lot of history being created. Tell us about the good, bad, and the ugly of the COVID times.
You see, we have been a Microsoft school,
Hmm.
Microsoft Showcase school since 2016. So technology was always around, you know.
Hmm.
And we have a phenomenal head of ICT, Miss Sonia Vadva,
Hmm.
who just churned out she rejigged our thought processes, and within a week we were out there. She had all the tutorials done. She had trained the teachers or retrained them or got them to dust off their minds about what it is we needed to do. Children were all trained, and we were teaching by the 23rd of March.
Hmm.
And when there were other things that needed to be added, she was out there. What has happened, I think, yes, it is a very scary time. Yes, there is a lot of sadness, deaths, fear, all of that around. But I think as a society within the school, um, we have really become much closer as people, because I think the dependency couldn't come from anywhere outside. It had to be within the community, it had to be within the Sanskarian community, it had to come from within. So I think all of us became pillars for each other emotionally to try to sort out issues that people were having, because it was a time where in India people are very used to having people around the house, which has to do with the cleaning, the cooking, the washing. And suddenly all that was gone. Those pillars were gone. They were not
Yeah.
allowed to come. And then you have not many of my students and teachers live in joint families. And there are older people, there are young children, there were people who had just had babies, there are single parents. And it was, you know, you suddenly realize you don't have that time for, you're just sitting at a screen and you're staring at a screen, and you don't have time for that emotional talk with a colleague outside in the corridor saying, I had a terrible time today, or this child is really driving me nuts. We were all frenzied about getting our lessons done, getting the new apps in place and knowing how to keep the children in, focus about what it is that they had to learn. All of that happened. But I think what parents realized, especially for the younger ones, is what goes into teaching a young child of 5 to 6 to 7 years old. And we have got, I think, numerous letters from the parents saying we had no idea what it takes to teach our child, because we just had to get our child to do the piece of work that was just coloring, or just following the letter A on a piece of paper, and it drove us around the bend, you know
Hmm.
so for people to realize, for I think it was a good time for parents to see what it takes to get a child to understand a new concept. So that was one good thing, and I think the parents also got some quality time with their child, especially if they were both working professionals. However, at the same time, I think if you're looking at a teenager, the teenager wants to be left alone. The
Yeah.
teenager have people, when he's listening to the lesson going on, having people asking him, have you done your homework? Have you eaten your breakfast? It drives. So there was a lot of compressed stress that came along with this time. So what we did, I mean, I've got a phenomenal director in Miss Jyoti Agarwal, because she's such a visionary. She's phenomenal. I mean, I just enjoy working with her. She has always believed that we have to do things outside the box. We can't just be thinking of the subject. We can't just be doing. So we have had, immediately we had online lessons for, sports. We had online lessons for cultural. We had
Hmm.
teacher time. We had, you could call up anybody could call anybody up. My teachers were calling every 2 weeks. Every single child was being called. The parents were being called. We had so many parent workshops, so it really took us to another level. And I don't think we want to go back. I think I want to be looking at. I mean, one of my in fact, Ms. Manpreet was saying, I used to call the children, and the children who needed support and help, I used to call them in on Saturdays, and the poor parents had to drive. When school starts again, I'm just going to do a Teams lesson. I'm just going to sit the child down there. So we've already started thinking about when this is over, we will be doing these different things
Ways.
differently. So
Yeah.
in many ways, I think it has taken a lot away from us, but I think this lockdown has brought in a lot more. There are struggles. There are parents who've lost their businesses. There are parents who've lost their jobs. So we've extended our help and support as much as we can as a school. Fees has been difficult for some parents, so we have done our bit to try to support them. But in at the core of all of that, I think the Sanskarian family really, had a lot more closeness that happened in this time with the parents. And I mean, any child who was not doing well, believe me, too, I have called every single child who did not do well in the half yearly exam, from the 10th standard to the 11th standard to the 12th standard. Every single parent, I used to have 6 people I used to call every evening, talk to the parent, talk to the child, have a Teams conversation. And the child would be, so embarrassed that I would be speaking to him in front of his parents, or the parents would sometimes be taken aback about how honest I was being about, getting their child to have some free time. There was a child, child said, I want to come to school, Miss Sheila. I said, come along, take a drive. All he wanted to do, he was so angry at not being allowed out of the house for 8 months, I mean, sorry, 5 months, that he
Mm.
just took a drive, came into the school, walked around the school, and then went back, and he was fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
They miss that environment, which is
They do miss a lot. They miss
this.
the school, and for children, I think, and for teachers, as you said, it was a place where they could let their hair down. Just it's a therapy in its own way, and now
Absolutely.
everybody realizes that how one could just cut off from the personal home life and just be in the school, and then there's a lot of therapy in the children running to the playground or talking to their friends, and even for teachers. And as we were talking earlier before we began, that I think in the new times we as we'll have to take the amalgamation of what's happening now, how we're doing now, and what we did earlier. So there has to be a holistic balance and amalgamation of that. On that note, I'm going to invite Jerry back into the conversation to throw some more insights
Okay.
and provoke some more thoughts and questions um, to you to take this conversation forward.
Okay. Sure.
Thank you, Itu, and namaste, Sheila ma'am, once again. Delightful conversation. I was very happy to know your views about the history and the historians. I find most of these historians to be lick ass rather than kick ass, right? So, so I'm sorry, I'm going to say it straight.
Yeah.
Uh, because it's not just about I mean, currently of course history is being rewritten in a very different way where it's being saffronized, but
Yeah.
I don't believe, like you named Romila Thapar, and then there's that other chap from Bangalore, Ramchandran Guha,
Mm-hmm.
Ram Guha,
Mm-hmm.
and they all seem to be aligned. They are like, in awe of some Nehru or some uh, Gandhi. And the idea is, as a history, you can't be in awe of anybody. You got to tell it like it is. You got to be straightforward. So yes, I mean, a lot of people glorify Hitler also, but that's very stark, right? But then you
Yes.
have people who in the guise of truth peddle nonsense, peddle lies, and half truths are more dangerous than lies because
Oh.
you really don't know what to believe and what not to believe. And Ramchandra Guha is one of them. I'll say it straight. I mean, I remember my wife gifted me a book of his years ago, and I said I wouldn't read it because I don't believe in this guy because he's so lick-ass. As a historian, you have to be true to to the cause of
Mm.
history, and you got to record history the way it is accurately,
Yes.
which means it's like an autobiography, right?
Yeah.
Or like a biography. When you're writing about a
Biography.
biography, you got to write not only the pros but also the cons. And unfortunately, whether it's biopics made in movies like the Dhonis of the world, or biographies which are written, you only see the glorification.
Yes.
You don't see the wrongs that they have done. You don't see the vulnerability. And I think that's where history, and I'm going to use a strong word again, that's where history gets bastardized. And that's very dangerous for the future generations. And I've deliberately used that word bastardized because that's what we have done with our history, right? uh, if you see the textbooks in school, the real heroes who really sacrificed their life for India, Bhagat Singh,
Mm.
Chandrasekhar Azad, they're reduced not even to a chapter but a paragraph in the school books. While there are reams about Nehru, and with all due respect, I mean, I'm not talking like a Hindutva Bhakt because I'm not a Hindutva Bhakt. I have my grievances against Nehru and that entire dynasty and their family because they misused the freedom struggle. They misused our independence to, yes, they built something in the process, but they could have built much more. But
Yes.
they were
Correct.
so busy usurping power, plundering public resources, that they forgot to build more. And the what we are seeing today is a manifestation of their legacy. Everyone blames Narendra Modi for what is going wrong. Yes, he's a punk, he's a Goomba. He's a gunda, and so is Amit Shah. But the point is, who's allowed them to do this? Who did the emergency first? It was Indira Gandhi. And if you actually go into the history and truly see that history, it was during the emergency that the tone for Gunda Raj was set in India, right?
Mm.
Because you had Sanjay Gandhi who used to pick up people willy nilly, you know, uh, and it was called the Nasbandi movement then,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
I remember.
Who gives you the right? It's a democracy, right? I mean, this is not China. You done that, and she had turned a blind eye. And what Modi is doing today with Stan Swami, etc., is what Indira Gandhi and the Gandhi family had done with so many crusaders and activists at that time.
Yeah.
So you set a precedent for everything that would go wrong in India. So
Right.
I don't blame Narendra Modi and Amit Shah as much as I blame them, because you set the tone and the precedent for gundas like Narendra Modi and Amit Shah to to kind of make us dance at their whims and fancies. So the Nehru family is to blame. Gandhi is to blame because you gave that name of Gandhi to Firoz Khan and made him into a Gandhi. So people in rural India think that this is the dynasty of the father of the nation. And the father of the nation, how are you the father of the nation when you couldn't be a good father to your own sons?
Yeah.
So we live with completely vulgar history, you know?
Yeah. So, the thing I think what we have to do is get the children to see. Maybe, I mean, you and I can always have opinions because we've lived our lives and looked at things from many different angles. But you see, for me, there is a vulnerability amongst the children because they take so much from social media. And what does the media cover nowadays? What kind of, I mean, I have stopped reading the newspaper, to be very honest, because I only look at the education section, and
Right,
that too only because of the NEP and everything else that is going on. Not
right,
because I am a fan. I look at the sports section, I look at the comics, and I look at the
right.
education section. I refuse to look at the headlines because they have stopped making sense to me. Yeah,
Absolutely. And welcome to
have
the
stopped
club.
making sense to
I
me.
stopped watching TV altogether from 2002 when I was invited to this show called The Big Fight or We the People, one of the two. And I was told that I cannot say that what happened in Gujarat is a pogrom by Barka Dutt while they were putting that blush and tone on me. And I was like, who are you to tell me what words I can use and not? And I was with Harsh Mandar and Karan Singh and everyone. And I said, if I cannot say what I want to say, I don't want to be on the show. And I walked out. I told Harsh also he should leave. And they all stayed back. Uh, so that was the first time I realized what this is all about. And I stopped watching TV altogether. I remember way back in 2004 or 5, my senior half was watching TV, and Arun Jaitley and Kapil Sibal were at each other. And I said, why are you watching all this? And I used that word again, the B word, bastardized news. And she said, what are you saying? I said, it is because they'll make fools out of us on this big fight and then go sit in the Taj Palace and have a beer together and behave like dogs that we have earmarked our territories and fooled these people. So I said, what are you watching? This is all hogwash. But I realized that when I was told by Barkadat, and I'm saying the name straight, she told me you cannot use the word pogrom or say it was state sponsored. You just can use the words riots and carnage. I said it was not a riot and carnage. There was a state's hand in it. Anyway, I stopped reading newspapers around 8, 9 years ago because I said it's all negative news. Same thing, rapes, this, that. So I stopped reading news. So now all I do is if I get something worthwhile on my school group or college group, then I read it. But it's it's a sad state of affairs that the fourth estate and the third pillar, the activists and the NGOs, the third pillar is the activists and the NGOs, both these who should have been the watchdogs and the
Yeah.
custodians of the people's interest and welfare have also got compromised, right? And I wrote this article, The Activist Ethic, a few months ago, just around when the lockdown had begun, because I was watching all this. So activists are also either on Congress's side or on BJP's side. And I'm like, how does that work? Right? If you're aligned with the party, you've lost your teeth. You have to be
Yeah.
non-aligned, you have to be apolitical and non-partisan to be a real activist and crusader. But you will see that every activist and crusader worth his salt has, he's not taking sides with the people. They're taking sides with the power structures that they believe in,
Or the industrialists, for that
or the
matter,
industrialists. Yeah,
which
and
is which is
with the
back funding so many of these NGOs so neatly that you don't even see it. Go in,
oh,
you're either sucked into what they want you to tell the people, or you're sucked into, a party telling you how things should be.
oh,
Or,
absolutely, absolutely. And
it is painful. It really is painful.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I spoke at the World Economic Forum around 15 years ago, and they wanted to kind of nominate me for that social entrepreneur award that they have. And I said, I don't accept awards, so don't even bother nominating. Right. But I was recently watching, and I unfriended her because it became a little too much for me. And a person from the NGO sector who just accepted the award. And I said, World Economic Forum, you're accepting an award from them, and then you're saying you're an activist working for eliminating poverty. How does that work? Because World Economic Forum is a rogue organization. They are only looking at the interest of the business people and the politicians, and it's crony capitalism and cronyism at work. And you are accepting an award from them and feeling proud about it. So I unfriended her. I said, I don't have much to say to you, right? But the point is, when all the structures of society have got so compromised, I recently watched this movie called Dark Waters, and then it becomes a lonely fight. You should watch the movie, a movie very sensibly made by Mark Ruffalo. He's produced the movie and has acted in it.
Okay.
And I read more about the movie and the lawyer on whose life it is based. His name is Mark Billiot, and it's about the fight against DuPont and the state, because the state is for the state, the DuPont was a big conglomerate, right? And he takes DuPont, and it's based on a New York Times report about the lawyer who became a pain for DuPont. And what I liked about the movie is there's no glorification of this lawyer. They've shown him all his vulnerabilities. They've shown the human side of him, and they've not used any cinematic license, right? So I was like, because even when you make movies in India which are based on social causes, you tend to like I remember. I mean, I had a creative difference with Ketan Mehta about the way you're making Manchi, because Manchi had no such arrogance to talk to a mountain and challenge a mountain. He was a very simple soul who was like, I'm not even interested in taking a photograph with anyone. And the one regret I have is that I don't have a photograph with him, right? I seldom take photos, but the one regret in my life is that I don't have a photo with him. And we were shooting an entire film at that time, and he refused to be a part of it. He said, "Nahi chahiye hame ye sab." So those are the real unsung heroes who get completely unheard of, unsung of. On the other side, you have people who are all the time in the limelight, making you feel like they're changing the world. And now, what has happened to me is, Sheila ma'am, is that the moment I see somebody come into the limelight, I get a little wary. I don't know. I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
Uh, well, I was just telling you earlier that the school that I worked in, ELC in Malaysia, we had a lot of royalty that came into our school. And
Right,
uh, however, the bodyguards would get all very fussy, and it was always very interesting. So one day, unfortunately, the children used to have their dance party in school, and they had to finish by 12, so that we gave them a safe environment to do the jumping dance that children normally do nowadays. That's all they do. So they had that, and this parent, top surgeon of the country, drove in completely drunk, and he rolled down and he started shouting rolled down the window and started shouting at my car. And so I went up and said, "Sir, can I help you?" He said, "Do you know who I am?" I just paused and I said, "I don't think you know who I am. Either you leave, or I'm calling the guards to actually clamp your car right now for the way you're behaving." I think that sobered him up quite easily. So that was the level of putting people, getting people, not putting people in their place, I would say, but just reminding people that we're all
right.
humans. And it was, you can't shout at a guard. He's just trying to do his job to get you to move
Absolutely, absolutely.
and,
And
stand there with your cars. So for me, those 21 years, Jerry, have been about understanding that there is a way to get people to see the right way to do things. And that is what it has been. That journey for me has been just, let us see what we can do differently, what we can do to make a child's life better, make a teacher's life better, make, the community's life, it moving forward. That is all I have looked at.
true, very
With
true.
the way things are here and now, it gobsmacks me when people, wait for you getting an award. Fair enough, you take it and leave. No, but they have to stand and pose, and they're looking there, they're looking here. It
Yeah,
tickles me
yeah,
pink,
yeah.
to do that. And unfortunately, again, Jerry, you know the institutions that we are in, we all need to be judged, because we all need to have, people look at us as somebody who are, unfortunately, we have to get that. So you have to get the to be looked at from different angles. It is one thing to be appraised by a community that tells you that you're really good. It's another thing to be appraised by, an accreditation body that is completely from the outside, that tells you that these are the standards that we have, and therefore we want to do that. But for me, I think awards or no awards, it when people ask me, so how did you do? We are given to understand you were the first principal, an Indian principal, first in Malaysia. So yeah, do you have any newspaper articles? I cringe, because for me, I was an accidental teacher who went on to become the principal of a school because somebody trusted me with that job.
Right.
To say that that is what I am is wrong. I think what I do should speak for itself. And I think
Absolutely, absolutely. And
any
and that defines who you are, your deeds.
yes, absolutely. So, an NGO, a child who wants to be a designer, a child who wants to work very, very hard, any
Right.
who is out there, I think the most important for them thing for them to know is not what you have. Uh,
Absolutely.
we had the king's grandson in our school, but had you met that child, you would have no idea that he was the king's grandson, the king of the country. They have, the Malaysians have, every 4 years you move the king from the different. They become the sultan, and every 4 years you move them around from the 9 states out to 13 states that have kings. So this child was so. And never ever would we worry about the king coming for a visit to the school. Yes,
Mm.
few protocols to be followed, but never that we had to kowtow to him, never that we had to, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, your highness. He was just sitting there as a parent saying, tell me what can I do to make my child do better. You know,
True.
and you have seen that level of humility and that level of being a human. You stop to think about the people who want to claim glory to everything
Right.
they
Right.
have, met this person or have a photograph with this famous person or have been given this award. It tickles me, honestly it does, because I think
Absolutely.
a
And
lot
that's why
more.
at our award ceremony, time and again, we keep reminding people that it's not an award or a laurel for you to rest on. It's a trusteeship to own more responsibility and be more accountable, be more humble, and to do more work, to learn more, do more, be more, grow more, and contribute more, of course. And when you spoke about the king from Malaysia, right? It reminded me of a conversation. James Michael Lingdo, our former chief election commissioner,
Mhm.
uh, and when he came for the award ceremony, he was part of the first award cohort that we had put together, 8 of them. The ninth one was missing because he passed away 3 months before the award
Oh
ceremony,
dear.
which was Dashrath Manji. So there was
Oh.
Anu Aga, there was Arun Maira, there was Harsh Mandar, Crispin Lobo, Marcela D'Souza, Vikram Akula, um, and Dr. Kurian for the Lifetime Achievement Award, and James Michael Lingdo, 8 of them. Right, so James and Harsh were from the government sector, Arun Maira and Anuaga were from the business sector,
Mm.
and from the NGO sector we had Vikram Akula was the social entrepreneur, and then we had Crispin and Marcella, who run a watershed management and microfinance organization in Pune, in Maharashtra. And when we had that ceremony, I was very surprised that this man who was the chief election commissioner of India would keep coming to me and ask me and say to me, Jerry, is it okay if I step out, because I do not want to listen to this man speaking, because he is making no sense to me. And I was like, why is this man coming and asking me that he wants to step out? He can just step out. And he would do it through the event. He kept saying, I'm just going to step out, I have a call to attend. This is your. And I was like, what a wonderful human being. And then I got to know him better, and I said, truly a supreme human being. And then I went and I had dinner with him and his wife in this place. They stay off Hyderabad in a small uh, kind of a township, which has it's after Gachibowli, where you have the Indian School of Business, way off, right? So Gachibowli is right outside the city limit. And I realized that this person was a very supreme human being. And then he was talking about the king of Bhutan, because he was invited by the king of Bhutan along with other constitutional experts to write the constitution of Bhutan. And he said, Jerry, that man is a very supreme human being. And as he was briefing us about how he wants to transform his monarchy into a democracy, even though the people were telling him that we want you to remain our king. And he was like, I love all your respect and trust that you have in me, but what if my son does not live up to those values? So I want to make it a democracy in my lifetime. And he was like, he would be sitting down on the ground doing his gardening and telling us what exactly he wants in the constitution. And we were like, this man is the king of this country. And he says that he was not doing it to show. He was doing it because that is who he was, right? He understood that all this monarchy and all everything is fake, because this is who I am, right? I belong to this earth, and that's it. So time to kind of ensure that my people get their freedom. And so happy and proud that when I got to know that our very own James Michael Lingdo led the entire process of setting up the constitution for Bhutan. So I think that's what it is. People who understand that are the enlightened ones, because they understand that there's nothing more to this, because I'm just another human being. This king and all is just because I was born with four-leaf clovers growing out of my ears, right? Just happened to be born in a family
Yeah,
which was Brahmin or Kshatriya, and it's all nonsense, because who created all these castes? And I
absolutely.
think that's what we need,
Absolutely.
and I think that's what historians need to address.
Yeah,
That these castes are man-made.
yeah,
They are
yeah,
not to be made because Pandit Ji was some great Brahmin. What is a great Brahmin about him,
yeah.
right?
And
Or
even then, I would just interject you. Who is a true Brahman? People have forgotten that.
right,
Just like the Catholics did with Catholicism, you had the Pope taking power, taking control. You had happening in England.
right,
The same with the Brahmins. But
absolutely, absolutely,
Brahmanism, if you look at, you see, my dad he could expound, the Vedas, he could talk about that, and he would boil it down to such simple stories for us to understand. Every
right.
Sunday afternoon, I remember sitting down either around him or around my grandfather, around his legs. All of us would be seated, and he'd be, telling us these. It would be so natural for us to listen to him because he was a great storyteller. And at the same time, the values that they were giving us, he would say Brahman is a person who does right. We've forgotten that. It has become,
Absolutely.
I have this, I wear the gold earrings, the gold ring, and whatever else, long hair and flowers, and therefore I'm considered to be a Brahman woman. I don't understand that. No, I have always, my father was a very forward thinking, and so is my mother, a very forward thinking person. But, we've forgotten the essence of what
Absolutely.
we are
Absolutely.
supposed to be, and the way we're getting politicized right now. Everything is becoming, like you talked about saffron. Everything is, getting pulled in the right and the wrong
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so much that I think the coming generations are not going to be able to understand the phenomenal legacy that 2000 years of India and its growth have left for them. They are going to be left with bits and fragments of what media is throwing at them,
No,
and that's
absolutely. And I completely agree with you that the good teachings that we had are not being percolated down. All the nonsense is unfortunately being percolated down. Whether it was Brahmins were supposed to share knowledge, right, abundantly, not that you marginalize a certain sect because you wanted to keep them under you. So that's where it started all going wrong, because when you don't share knowledge abundantly, it shows a wily design. And I think that's what when I we started writing the Karmakari books, because Dashrath Manji was from a, and he inspired me to start the Karmavir Awards, and then start writing the books. And when we started writing the books, I remember it was way back, 2009 10 is when we announced it. 11 is when I started writing seriously, right, because I had never thought I would write a book before. And then 2013 it got published. And I remember it was when we announced it in 2010, it was at one of the Karmavir Award ceremonies. And the a journalist who was there, she asked, she said, who's going to read about all these people? Because they are not people who attract the public. They are not public figures. They're not celebrities. And I said, yeah, that's exactly the reason that I want to write about them. And this that old African proverb which holds true, right? That until and unless we don't have people who are writing the history of the lion, the hunter will always be glorified. And that quote has such a lot of brilliance in it, because what we see is always the hunter getting glorified, right? You don't see the unsung heroes, the people who really make a difference in our society, getting glorified. Frankly speaking, the way I see it, Narendra Modi, Rahul Gandhi do sweet bugger all, except playing their petty politics to stay in that chair, to stay in power. It is the Dashrath Manchis, the Subhashini Mistris. I showed some of those stories last year when I was at your school. It is them who are changing the world and changing our country every day, and no one's documenting them. And when we started this way back in 2010, there was no newspaper writing about it, but now suddenly, many newspapers have unsung hero columns. So I think it's about starting off, and it's not just the success of the books or the number of books sold. It's about how do you impact other minds to start thinking that we need to profile these unsung heroes. And today I think almost every newspaper has a unsung hero column. Earlier this year we announced a book of COVID heroes, and then our concept became stale because now everybody's talking about COVID heroes. So therein lies the concept. But as long as it's impacting the community positively, I think we have done our job. It's not
Yeah.
about the book or the number of books that we sell. It's about, and that's why we call our platform Rex, not just talks, ideas for action. And we should add this to the history and milestones page, just on a different note,
Yeah.
Itu. So thank you so much, ma'am, Sheila ma'am. It's always a pleasure sharing insights with you. And thank you, and brilliant insights and a lot of learning over there. And yes, we have to ensure that our children don't get polarized, because we are at an all-time high rate of polarization right now. If you watch
Absolutely.
any groups, Facebook groups or WhatsApp groups, you will see that polarization. It's very stark, and it's scary. And I think we as citizens need to address this, because it's only going to get scarier. No matter who is in government, it's only because this is their trump card to divide and rule,
Totally.
right?
I agree with you. And if I might just say this, it is not just about the religion, it is also about the communities that we have, the
Absolutely,
communities,
absolutely,
the LGBTQ.
absolutely,
People don't even want to talk about it. It is,
absolutely.
no, 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 it doesn't matter. No, 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 we don't. I mean, I have had some amazing experiences with parents as homosexual or as lesbians, and the uh, initial trauma that the children go through trying to understand it. But from there, the way the family units really got together, came together, or fell apart, all these have been such strong learnings for me, Jerry, coming away from Malaysia, that it gives you such a broader perspective on everything that you can manage to do, but there is such little time. You want to educate the children and say, don't throw these words as gay, lesbian, as oh, he's so gay just because he's touching somebody else. The mindset for me is a very, very important core to the value that one must set in a child. To have an open-mindedness to people around you, starting with, and I mean, there was a time when one of the children was getting his driver to drag his trolley bag along with his lunch bag. And I said, "Oh my God, you must have been very, very tired. Are your hands not working anymore?" He said, "Why, miss?" I said, "Oh, why is your maid? No, that's my maid's job."
The entitlement. The entitlement.
So I warned the maid. I said, "If I see you on this campus anymore," that was back there. "If I see, I don't think if I'd be able to get away with it here." I said, "If I see you on this campus anymore, this child is not coming to my school." So it is very interesting to see how people use that entitlement, use the privileges that they have for
Yes.
themselves.
And parents don't realize this, that this is a trap. There's this the dean of Doon School wrote a book about this, and I don't think the parents liked what he wrote or what he used to say to them, so they ensured that his exit was faster, and he was hardly there for a year and a half or so. This is Doon School in Dehradun, right? And we actually call it, when we share the Mills brochure with you, the Mojo's Inspirator Life Leadership and Learning to Learn Success Summit that we have created for the youth. Since there are no jobs out there, we are trying to make them think about how they can become missionary passupreneurs. In the Mojo's Inspirator book, we call it the E3 entrapment, the education trap, because your education limits you. It does not truly kind of liberate you, right? Second is the experience trap, because we are not just victims of our own experiences, we are also the victims of our parents and other grown-ups in our family and school. We are victims of their experiences, their blind beliefs, their limitations. And the third biggest trap, the most dangerous trap, is the entitlement trap. So that's what. So
I
we
love
we
it.
speak about that all the time. So we are on the same page, and I'm happy that we are on the same page. And great. So we will share all these thoughts with you and
Yeah.
take it from there.
We'll send you the mail. I think one mail would have been in your inbox. Just check it out, but we'll send you a reminder
Right.
again.
And I'm completely with you that, I mean, the polarization is happening at many levels. We've been speaking about this for years. That it's not just about religion, but about region. Karnataka not giving water to Tamil Nadu, Tamil Nadu not giving, crazy. I mean, or people in Goa telling me that, these outsiders are spoiling Goa. So this xenophobia is there in every community. It's not just Bal Thackeray and Shiv Sena who are xenophobic. I mean, educated friends and family members of mine, they are so xenophobic that this migrant labor should be rid of from Goa. And I'm like, seriously, they're Indians. So
We'll have to have another session with Sheila
yeah,
ma'am.
we can go on that. So
Yeah,
thank you so
or
much. Namaste and have a good evening. My regards to all at home.
thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. It was lovely to talk to both of you. Thank
Thank
you
you,
Thank you
Sheila,
so
ma'am. Thank
much.
you. Thank
and
thank
good
you. You too.
night.
See you. Good night.
Good night.